Welcome to Epic Insightful Broadcasting, coming straight to you from Florida. And today, unfortunately, it's not funny looking outside the window. It's quite cloudy, and as you might have heard in the news last weekend, we had a little bit of torrential rains. We were expecting a tremendous hurricane, and so it was built up that we needed to, do the usual preparations. But at the end of the day, thank goodness, it missed my end of Florida. Not so good for the Panhandle where it did hit and did a little bit of havoc, but no loss of life, which is awesome. I don't know if all of you have been attuned or had a chance to look at the news today, but unfortunately there was horrific news about a shooting at a school in Texas rather, and there was one person who was injured. I'm not sure if there was loss of life, but it just brought to mind how important today's episode is, and the fact that our millenniums are the generation that are leading today's business and social consciousness movement. And I'm so happy and so privileged to have today on our episode a young man who I've come to know and come to respect quite dearly. His name is Patrick Turney, and he is definitely a blazer millennium. So I'm going to introduce Patrick really quickly so you can see who I'm talking about, and then we're going to get started with today's episode. All right. And we've got Jackie on board. Hey, Jackie, how are you? I'm glad you could join us. Thanks for hanging out with us. Okay, so Patrick, typically I like to open the broadcast with a little quote. How wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. That comes straight from Miss Anne Frank. Now, I think having lived at the time that she did in the chaos of the war that she was in, and having to hide and not being able to be true to herself and her passions and be able to live freely, I think we can certainly understand the importance of today's episode as I introduce, again, this blazing millennium. Patrick, you're going to be on the big screen. Even though I still show on the screen, you're going to be on the big screen. Okay? So Patrick, let me tell folks a little bit about you. So Patrick is a successful John Maxwell certified leadership coach, teacher, and speaker who for several years worked and acquired highly sought after skills in information technology and cybersecurity till he had that epiphany. And today he's devoted himself to a leadership consulting, coaching, and mentoring. Patrick is masterful in delivering workshops, seminars, and keynote speeches and other professional growth initiatives. He has made an impact internationally. While in Paraguay, where he was on mission, he was working with government-sanctioned organizations to promote transformation in the country through mastermind sessions with top government, business, and special sector interest group leaders. Patrick not speaking the language did not allow that to be an obstacle for him. He just proliferated through his passion to influence others, to identify their value as individuals and as members of an organization. Patrick believes that the mission field is right in his backyard. He is a contributing member of a mastermind roundtable discussion hosted by the City of Alexandria Workforce Development Center, and he was recently awarded the Corporate Responsibility Award for his efforts. This Millennium Blazer that I am so proud to introduce is now developing a youth leadership program to be implemented in all churches across the country. He has a heart to empower youth to put their feet to the ground and to find a way to make a positive difference in this world. Well, welcome, Patrick, to Epic Insightful Broadcast.
Well, thank you very much for that amazing and wonderful introduction. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this session.
All right, awesome. So why don't we start with the obvious? What was that epiphany, that moment? What was the epiphany, that aha moment that you had while you were still in tech and security?
It didn't happen at a single instance. It just, I guess, bloomed over a period of time. I just started losing the desire for what I was doing. I was good at what I was doing, but I was losing the desire very, very quickly. And I remember one time I unknowingly, I wrote it on my whiteboard in my office, exit strategy. I knew I wrote it, but I forgot that it was written on the whiteboard. So when my colleagues came in and was like, what's this? What does that mean? I was like, you know what it means? I was like, so you're just going to tell the whole world that you fed up, you're ready to leave? So, but it was just, because I've been on the personal growth journey for quite some time. I've been following a lot of great thought leaders, and then every time I listen to them or read their books or listen to their audio program, it really spoke to me. And then I came to a point where I was wondering, what can I do to make my life really count? Because I felt in a way I was being selfish, because what I was doing was only impacting myself. Yes, I was adding value, serving the client, but the return I was getting was only benefiting myself. So I was asking myself, what can I do to make an impact? And the other thing was that I kept asking myself, well, I do not want to be the person that was here, and then when I'm gone, no one knew that I was here. So that was really the thought that really drove me to make that change.
So awesome. Did you hear that, people? A millennium who wasn't thinking of who? Himself. Now there is, I think, an epic thought. You know, when we're young, just by the nature of the developmental stage, we tend to be very egocentric. We're concerned about our own well-being, our own survival, our own success. And yet this young man knew enough to know that progress, success, and development in himself meant looking outside of himself to see how he could make a significant impact. So thank you, Patrick. Thank you for that wonderful insight and that message to more young people.
I just knew, looking forward for the next 40 or 50 years, or whenever the time would come for me to retire, that I just couldn't see myself in a way just letting my life go down that path. And when it gets to that point, to have the regret, well, what would have happened if I would have really took a chance on myself, on what my heart desires were, to really live the life that I think I could live, as opposed to just remain in that position where I was comfortable, remain in that comfort zone. But instead, I decided to bet on myself and take a change that's really changing my life, and now I have the opportunity to change the life of others as well.
What an awesome insight, right? Most of us take a lifetime to recognize that, you know, we get so comfortable in our day job that the thought of looking towards a dream job, as he's referring to, you know, following your passions and wanting to make an impact greater than just on yourself, but on the world, that typically comes with quite a number of decades of maturity and experience. And yet this young man has, taken that quantum leap ahead. And so I really commend you, Pat, because that is not a typical quality you find amongst the young today, right? So what do you think sets yourself apart? What do you think is the quality or what ignited that fire in you, do you think?
I think a major part of it is my spirituality. I grew up in a Christian home. My parents always served, and I've developed that passion also. I love serving. I love serving people. I care for people. I always seek to serve, find ways to serve and add value to people, whether it's in my church, in my community, or even in my profession. I was always the one to go around and help other people with whatever challenge they were having. I think it's something that just started early on, seeing how my parents would serve in the church or serve in the community, and I just took a liking to that. And then that really was at the core of that decision.
Awesome. So who do you think you would like to dedicate? We always start with the dedication of the episode, and I kind of jumped ahead because I got so excited about the tech. Who would you like to dedicate this episode to?
I would say to entrepreneurs, people who are passionate about life, who are taking steps to design and lead the life they want to live. And also people who have a desire to change the world and make an impact so that they make their life count for something.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we're going to jump into some very specific content, okay? Patrick, if that's okay with you?
Well, that's perfect.
All right, so awesome. So you talked a little bit about your core, which was grounded in your home life and in your belief system that you were raised in, which led to your servant's heart, correct?
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about perhaps a story or a moment in your life that really affirmed that you were on the correct path for yourself?
I would probably say, because it's been so impactful, the trip that I took to Paraguay this past January, to have the opportunity to travel to a foreign land and to be able to serve and add value to people that I didn't know, and the way I was able to connect with them and serve them, and what that experience meant. And just overall experiences. I've been blessed to travel to various part of the world. I've traveled to the World Cup. I've had the opportunity to work in Seoul, Korea for a month, had the opportunity to work in Hawaii for a month. So I've been in very unique and wonderful places, but nothing compares to the experience that I had for the week that I was in Paraguay, to be able to serve people and add value to people. And the way it just, it was a lot of work. We worked a lot of hours. It was hard work, but I was exhausted by the time I was done. But I had that moment where I was like, when you're doing what you love, even when you don't have anything left, you still find a way to push yourself. It was a lot of long days and very short nights. I think I went 3 days, maybe with like 4 hours of sleep. But
Wow.
even though I was extremely exhausted, but still, whenever next was time for the next session to go to another venue and train and serve the people, I was ready to go. And it just really, that moment realized when you're really following your passion, doing what you love, you find energy to do what you think you were not able to do.
So did you know that statistically 20% of workers, people who are employed, are heart passionate about what they do? So that means that 80% of people who go to work day in and day out actually don't enjoy what they do. And for that reason, statistics and research show that the productivity levels of individuals who are not fully committed and fully engaged in the work that they do is so much less than that 20% of the population who are fully intentional in their passion-driven, heart-driven work, and hence the title, right? The power of the heart. Because if you are an entrepreneur, or you are a business owner, and you have teams, even entrepreneurs being sole, they consider themselves initially, anyways, when you're starting a business, you're the sole proprietor and the sole employee. But in order to grow, an entrepreneur needs a substantive team, a supportive team. And can you tell us a little bit about the kind of work you did in the transformational leadership training that you did in Paraguay? Because they're still in the old school of thought where it's very hierarchical, and there's, the president of the company and various levels of leadership, and then you've got the workers. And what you're talking about is much more transformational, collaborative leadership styles. Am I correct, in terms of organizations and being able to be fully engaged in your work through passion, which means being human, right? Coming to work and being able to be who you are, as opposed to just limiting yourself to the expectations of the company and the role that you might play within it. So maybe you want to share a little bit about the unique type of training that you did with the Paraguayan organizational leaders.
Sure. So it was, we call it the transformational roundtable. And we teach leadership values, and those values, there were 16 values that were identified by the Paraguayan government. So they surveyed the population, and then they came out with 16 values. And then the process was to train the trainer. So we went and trained it was about 250 of us that came from all over the country that went to Paraguay. And for the week that we were there, we trained 15,000 people. And those people have trained. We just got an update this past Tuesday that they've already trained 700,000 other people in the same process. And the two values that we taught them while we were there was on attitude, because attitude has been an extremely big problem over there. One of the things that I remember, there was one of the interpreters, we were having a discussion with her, and she's very super bright, have very big aspirations. And then, so when she's sharing with us her dreams, we're like, you can definitely do it. How can we help you? And she was like, well, you have to understand it. And whenever I share my dream with people around me, they tell me, well, you're from Paraguay. Who are you to have such big dreams? So they will instantly kill her desires, her passion, because that's just how the country think. That unfortunately, that's how the people think. But when we started connecting those roundtables, we started seeing the transformation happening before our eyes, because we were raising the level of awareness. It was materials that they had never seen or heard before. It was very powerful to tell them that their attitude is actually their choice. They choose how they react to whatever happens to them. And every morning when they wake up, they can make a decision if they're gonna have a good day, a great day, or a bad day. And whatever happens in between is essentially inconsequential unless they give power to whatever happens to them.
So we're talking about a model that really purports taking 100% responsibility for your input in order to get the best output. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'd be curious, what was one of the 16 values that Paraguay identified as possibly being the most challenging? Did you guys get that far to break that down?
Sure. Attitude, competence, forgiveness was another one. Intentional living. Um, there's quite a few other ones that they surveyed the whole country, and then those were the top 16s that they felt that if they can implement those values throughout the country, they will see the biggest impact.
So in the week that you were there and you saw some transformation, what was the greatest one of those 16 transformative factors that you were able to witness? Which one did you see the most being utilized and implemented by those that you were teaching?
So actually, we didn't teach all 16 because we didn't have time, so we just taught the first two.
Okay.
And the one that was most recognized was attitude, because so many people were almost shocked to learn that their attitude is their choice, their decision. And I remember on one of the sessions, we went in January, so right before we went in the DC area, we had one of our biggest snowstorms. I think it was some places got up to like 32 inches of snow, and in Paraguay they had never seen snow. So I used that as an example. Now I had pictures I was had floating around the room that even though I was essentially locked in my home, I couldn't go anywhere, but I had a positive attitude because every day I would pull up on my phone, pull up the weather, see it's like 90 degrees in Paraguay. So I chose to not let the conditions in my surroundings affect me, because I knew where I was going in summertime and I didn't have to worry about shoveling snow or how cold it was. And I made the decision to have a positive attitude. And that really drove home with them, because in all their conditions, often they will essentially blame other people for what's happening to them. So they would allow other people to dictate their attitudes. But that process of going through that process with them showed them that no matter what happens, it's ultimately their decisions. And then by them making the decision, instead of giving somebody control by allowing them to dictate how you react, how you respond, you can take control of your life and your destiny by choosing your attitude.
Absolutely. It brings me back to one of the pivotal, I would say, clinical equations that I have always subscribed to in life. And that is basically that, there's events, there's incidences, things that happen, even things that are out of your control, right? So that's E, yeah. Plus R, which is your response or your reaction. How you're going to react to that is going to lead to your outcome, correct? So, I mean, you and I can have the exact same incident occur to us, but if you're coming from a place of gratitude and a place of peace and knowing that you are going to fulfill your passion, you'll look at it one way versus someone who's in complete negativity and too overwhelmed by the circumstances of the event. The outcomes are going to be totally different. So you guys are teaching some powerful, very applicable lessons. And so tell me a little bit about having come back now, and you're back in reality, so to speak, because it's no different than, how they say, a fifth grader can teach a two grader so many things, and that two grader is so inspired because they didn't know that knowledge, but now the fifth grader comes back, comes back to the reality of being amongst so many thought leaders that are moving in the same direction, and and I think that's wonderful because it's moving the social conversations and context into much more understanding of social responsibility in business as well as in work in general. Can you tell us a little bit about what the state of transformational leadership and coaching and mentoring, which is your specialty, how is that industry doing?
It's doing great. It's booming. It's just taking off by leaps and bounds. And I think last year alone, it was $1 billion industry just in the U.S. alone. And I'm not sure what the number is globally, but more and more people are becoming aware of the power of coaching, the power of executive coaching, the power of transformational leadership. It's becoming more and more acceptable because in business, more and more executives are making use of executive coaching to up-level their performance, to up-level the outcome of their organizations. And even individuals are starting to realize that. As a matter of fact, I met with a potential client yesterday. He was telling me like, well, I realized that I need help. I realized I need coaching, because if all the successful people, successful executives, athletes, singers, actors, anyone who's highly successful, if you look, they all have coaches. Michael Jordan had a coach. Tiger Woods, when he was the best golfer in the world, he had a swing coach. So it's just no longer, I guess there used to be a stigma where people was kind of shy away from coaching, but now it's becoming more and more acceptable. There's a higher awareness, and more people are realizing that when you have a coach, the coach brings a different perspective to your situations that you can't have yourself, and that helps you to accelerate your success, to fast track your success, because that's what the coach is supposed to do.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about specifically your brand of specialized, unique, passion-based coaching, mentoring, and teaching. What sets you apart, Patrick, from other coaches?
I'm a servant leader, so I serve from the heart. I work with people from where they are, and I listen to them. I hear their heart desires, and I work with them to help them fulfill their desires and meet their goals and exceed their expectations. And this is basically how I operate. John has a quote that says, "You touch the heart before you ask for the hand." And I remember maybe 2 months ago, I was at a networking function, and then this lady, she waited and waited to talk to me. And then afterwards, she was like, like there's just something about you. It's your authenticity. Like, I haven't spoken to you yet, but I've seen how you interact with other people. So it caused me to pause and wait to talk to you. I just felt like I had to talk to you. And once we started talking, we realized that we were connected, because even though we attended the University of Florida at different times, but we were both alumni of the University of Florida, and we have been business partners ever since.
Awesome, Patrick. So here's your legacy question, okay? You ready?
Yes.
If you could travel back in time and tell that startup version of yourself one thing that is related to being an entrepreneur in today, in the 21st century, what would it be?
I don't know if it would just be one thing, but maybe a couple. Maybe the majority would be to be patient and trust the process. I think I'm naturally impatient. I have little patience, so when I try something or when I put my hands to something, I want it to work and I want to see result fast. So I would just tell my younger self to really stick to it, trust the process, trust yourself, trust your instincts, knowing that you are on the right path. If you just stick with the process, you ultimately see the result that you want, that you desire.
Awesome. Patrick, I'm going to share a quote that I think is almost synonymous with what we've been talking about for the audience to consider. I always like to give little tidbits so that people can really reflect personally and kind of internalize what the wonderful content that you've shared with us. I'm going to do my best to hold up the quote. It's a little long, but I trust me that it's well worth understanding this quote. So here we go. Unless you're a unique, identical twin, you're a unique and never to be repeated event. Your parents could make love 1,000,000 times and never again reproduce the same genetic pattern. You are the only chance this planet has for your unique contribution. So here are the questions. The first one is, so will others' expectations, rules, and roles be your focus?
As it relates to my personal life or business life?
Oh, nope, just hang on, there's 3. Now, will you only be what you think you should be? And lastly, or will you occur? I absolutely love this quote. It completely embodies the essence of what my belief system is. I truly believe, as you do from what I'm hearing, that we are uniquely created in our Creator's womb because He knew us before we were even born, and we have a unique path that no one else can fulfill for this world. And it's such a shame to me, and it's so painful for me in the work that I do for the state to see so many young people be so lost and have no hope and not recognize their uniqueness and their gifts, so that they can then grow like you've done and done the personal development and taken the time and invested in yourself. Because truly, it is an investment in yourself to invest in the world. And they don't have neither the awareness nor the insight of the importance of that. So I'm so, so, so blessed that we met, because we crossed paths in a very unique way as well. There's no mistakes. I don't know. Do you want to take a minute and just share how you and I met?
Sure. I guess it has its roots in Paraguay. One of the organizations that I facilitated training for, the owner has been fighting human trafficking for the past 20 years. As a matter of fact, in 2008, she received the International Women of Courage Award, which is only given to 8 women in the whole world. And because of, she has such a strong passion and desire for that cause, I just couldn't help it. So when I came back, I have to find a way to connect her with people that are in that space and help her find resources. So when I came back from the States, I uploaded that video, because she gave me a 5-minute video she shared of her story and what she's looking to do and what the impact she wants to have on the world. So I uploaded that video on my Facebook page and asked if anybody has any connection to that space to reach out to me. And then you were one of the few people that reached out. And then I guess, as they say, the rest is history.
Absolutely. And I have to be completely honest with you, up until that point, Facebook for me had been like a taboo. Because it was being so utilized as a social platform, and social in all the, the meaning of the word, that people would just go on and, I'm in Starbucks and I'm in San Francisco going into a store. I never looked at Facebook as being, as it's become for me, which is very much a highway, a virtual highway where you can meet some exceptional people who are trying to utilize all the technology and mediums that are available to us to get their messages out, to impact powerfully. And through our connection, then there was a little group that we kind of created, right, of same-minded people who had the same heart to try to find some way to make an impact in such a social injustice, really, that still plagues not just the U.S. and internationally the world as a whole, I think, and we're going to be dealing with it for quite some time. It's a growing problem, pandemic, and so I've stayed in touch with Cynthia, and we do quite a bit of work together, and I think we're going to be doing a great deal more as I move into the international realm. But
Exciting.
So who knew, right? Who knew Facebook was the starting place? How do they say it? The flint that got the fire started, right?
Right. Nothing happens by coincidence.
Absolutely not. I'm with you on that one. Nothing does happen by coincidence. So Patrick, in the last 60 seconds, leave us with your nugget of wisdom. What would you say if you were looking in the camera and speaking to that one person out there that needed to hear your message? What would you want them to be able to take away from this broadcast?
To follow your heart, follow your heart's desire, follow your passion. And as indicated in the quote that Dr. J just read, we all are unique. And so many people are caught up in trying to be something they're not, or trying to imitate somebody else. There's a quote that says, you might as well be yourself because everyone else is taken. And nobody else can be you better than you can be you. And God created us with a unique purpose. We have a specific reason to be here. And then one of the people that I identify with is Les Brown, and one of his speech talks about how so many people, that the cemetery is one of the wealthiest place on the planet, because so many people come and gone, and all their dreams and everything they had in them to change the world, and they just took it right to the grave with them, and that always sticks in my mind. So when I think about how much I love basketball, how much I enjoy watching the greats like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, or Michael Jackson, the people who, or as the Olympics just happened, as the world was captivated by Usain Bolt or Michael Phelps, those people who are really dedicate their lives to their gift, and they share with the world how that changes us, how we are blessed by their gifts. We all have that same gift inside of us. It just takes us to take the leap of faith and get out of our comfort zone and invest in ourselves to develop our skills to be able to share our gift with the world. Because one of the things that I'm committed to doing is to not rob the world of my gift, to not rob the world of my greatness, because I know I was placed here for a reason, a specific purpose, and I will do everything in my ability, my power, to make sure that I share that gift with the world, so that the world is a better place because I was here.
Absolutely. And if you stuck with us, he's done one step more. He's given you, Sue, if you'll be so kind as to put up the free album Patrick has created for our live audience and for our tribes, he is giving away one of John Maxwell's best-selling books, as well as an opportunity to connect with Patrick personally and just get to experience the passion that you hear from him on the big screen that just passed. But also, he's going to do a laser-focused coaching session with you to just ignite your fire, internal fire, to start your journey towards self-actualization and awareness, and wherever your passion may lie, he will get that moving for you. Patrick, awesome. Thank you so very much for being with us today. And thank you out there for being out in the virtual space with us today. And thank you for being so kind as to not in any way lose sight of the fact that technology is not my forte, but speaking definitely is. So God be with you, God bless, and thank you. Until next week, thank you again, Patrick. Thank you, Sue, for the production support, and we are out for today.